This is so out of my comfort zone. I'm just being obedient to God right now. But I'm going to start recording my Bible studies. And so this is the perfect time, right? Um, and today I want to talk about how my faith had been under attack. So recently, God asked me to take a step of faith. Now, I'm not new to Christianity. I've been a Christian for a long time. Grew up in the church. My parents are pastors. But I will say that I had a very long season where it wasn't that I didn't have faith in God. It's that I didn't see the things happening in my life that I saw happening in other people's lives. So I had faith. But my faith was in that God will do it for someone else. And I never had the faith that God was going to do it for me. Um, and I feel like He presented me with opportunity again and again to exercise my faith because at some point I said, I really do want to have the faith that all these other people have. Like, I want to be able to step out and watch God provide for me and watch God. I think we're supposed to try Him at His word, right? But at no point or time was I doing anything to actually try Him at His word. And I'd like to say that it was fear. Fear was keeping me from doing that. Fear was keeping me from moving forward. And I didn't realize it at the time because I labeled it as anxiety because I was one growing up who had anxiety because of past situations and traumas. But I finally got to a point where I was tired, and not only that, but I was seeking God for like my purpose, and He had told me what He had planned for me and what He wanted for me. And questioning Him, I'm like, all right, God, what do you want from me? And He showed me that what He needed for me to do was to walk in faith and to trust Him. Because when I did that, for what He has planned for me, I needed to trust Him with everything. So I said, okay. And so I talked to my husband and I told him, I said, I really think for whatever season that God's about to put me in, I can't stay on my job. And it wasn't just the job. I needed God's push, right? Because I was still a little bit shaky or hesitant about like, hey, this is the biggest faith move that I could ever make is to stop working because I make a significant amount of money and I have a child. And the thing is, it's different when your faith move, it's only affecting you versus when it's affecting your family. Also, what faith is the evidence of things hoped for, or faith is, hold on, I want to make sure I say this right. Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. And so, like, what does that mean? Hold on, I want to do a deeper because I've been in this all morning, right? And so this comes from Hebrews 11 and 1. Okay. I don't know what anyone else uses AI for, but I use AI to scan the internet to give different interpretations. And I don't take it as my own, but I like to take some bits and pieces, especially if it's something I didn't study specifically, but I just know, and it dropped in my spirit like that this is what's needed. But faith is the substance of things hoped for, evidence of things not seen, right? So this means that faith gives that real assurance or confidence in things that we're hoping for, even if we don't have them yet. And it's like saying, I believe it's real and it's coming before I see it. Evidence of things not seen. Faith acts as a proof of conviction about the things that are invisible, like God's promises. You may not see them with your own eyes, but you just are trusting that it's there. So faith is just trusting in God's promises, even when you can't see how they're going to come to pass. And the thing is, I knew with whatever season I was just walking into, God's like, I need you to have full faith in me. Again, though, I had to talk to my husband. And I was like, look, and he's not a babe in Christ, but I introduced him to Christ years ago. And he's still at a place of having deeper relationship with God. And so I think I needed him to trust me. And he's like, I trust you. He said, but I also trust God. Because he said the only way that he got to where he's at now was God. And so I was like, all right, everything's lining up. So I'm like, okay, God, I need your help with getting off the workplace then. I said, there's stuff that needs to be in place with my daughter, with my husband. I said, we need to get out of debt. And stuff just started happening. My husband started making faith moves, and he started paying off things. And in the process, our car was paid off. And another process, a lot of medical bills that were piled up on our credit card was paid off. And then there's just all these things just started happening. And God just was proving himself more and more. And I was like, all right, Lord. So am I taking baby steps? Am I just moving on to part-time? I trust you to move on a full-time, but please show me what it is that you have for me. Please show me what it is that you want from me. And I said, I'm really unsure about this. So what I'm going to do is I'll put in my notice, God. And I was like, and if it's your will, then I'll step off full-time. And things came about, and I was in a place where I said that no part-time, just full-time, let it go. And I knew it was gone. But, right, sometimes, right, we're human, though. Sometimes it feels a little bit scary. And I'll say that I was a little, I won't say scared. It was just kind of like, wow, this is happening. And I couldn't describe the emotion that I was feeling, but it was so unfamiliar and it was so new, because I said, on this level, God, I've never. But it feels right, and it feels like what I'm supposed to be doing. And I know that even from now and moving forward, I will continue to have to step out in faith, even with my husband, even with my child being here. I know that I have to make more steps in faith. And so I said, okay, I'm doing this. And I did it. And this is why I wanted to say Faith Under Attack. That's my testimony. That's where I am now. This is my first week of not working and trusting in God to provide. But as soon as I did it, I'm going to say 24 hours after my last day, we got in the car, and my check engine light came on. And immediately, I could feel it in my chest. I said, I just know, like, what is this? I was like, is this a test? And I've been tested in the past, right? The thing is, this goes wrong with anything in life. If you're trying to learn something, the key to knowing that you know what it is, or you've learned it, is to be tested, right? So I was like, all right, here's the test. But my husband had to calm me down, because it put me back to this place. And it wasn't like a doubting of God. Even in that moment, it was still like, I trust you, God, but, oh God, how is this going to work out? How are we going to do this? How is this going to get through? You know? And he immediately was like, but you're supposed to be trusting me, right? And I said, yes, I am. And so I had to pull myself back, and I had to correct myself, and I say, all right, where am I going with this? What am I doing with this? Let me encourage myself, right? I always learned, like, encourage yourself in the Lord. And I felt discouragement coming, and I said, all right, I got to encourage myself in the Lord, encourage myself in the Lord. So I immediately started listening to worship music. I immediately started reading. I'll do my devotional. I try to correct myself. I try to continue to tell myself and my spirit that he's working everything for my good. He's working everything for my good, and trust him in it. I started making up these different scenarios that always resulted every time in positivity and not negative. And I just kept saying, all right, trusting in God, and I'm trusting in you, and I'm trusting in you. And I kid you not, I was supposed to do my Bible study this morning. A few things happened. Wasn't able to. Was going to the shop today. And the thing is, I'm supposed to get my car inspected. So I'm just like, not now. Like, can this stuff with my car not happen right now? Like, and so I get in my car, heading to the doctor, and I'm just driving, right? And then I noticed that whatever was going on with my car, I had two different lights going on. It was a check engine and it was something else. And they all popped up out of nowhere, right? And immediately, like, I realized, I was like, wait, it's gone. Like, what happened to all the lights? What happened to all the signals? All that stuff that was there, it's no longer there. And I think I was in shock for a minute. Because I was confused. And my thing is, I'm a very logical person. And that's another reason why I'm like, all right, I got to step out on faith. And how it was like such a big deal, because it's like, okay, logic says X, Y, and Z. But it's like, no, I'm giving all the glory to God for this, for solving the thing. You know, I put my trust and my faith in him, and it's solved. And, you know, I felt like I had put my mindset in a space where it's like, all right, regardless of whatever's going on, whatever I'm dealing with, he's going to do it, and I'm trusting him in it. And he proved himself, and he's been proving himself through this whole transition of what's going on in my life. It's like, you know what? He's been proving himself. And so I was like, I need to do the same, right? So here's the thing. Here's the thing that kept me. Hebrews 12:2. This is the HCSB. Keeping our eyes on Jesus, the source and the perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that lay before him endured a cross and despised the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of God's throne. So I went through again and looked over that verse, because that was one that spoke to me. But sometimes certain words, I'm just like, I want to expound and figure out, like, what does that really mean? And so God being the author and the finisher of our faith, is Jesus being the originator and the initiator of faith, and he's the one who starts that process in us. And finisher being that he's also the one who is perfecting and completing our faith and helping us to grow and mature spiritually. And putting our trust in it is like, encourages us to rely on God completely, not just for salvation, but in every aspect of life. And I think that's what it was, right? It's like, in all aspects of life, I have to trust him. In everything, I have to trust. And so I get to listen to worship music because I do find lyrics to be so beautiful. And one of the songs that really stick with me is Jonathan Taylor, I Trust You. And he just goes on and on, just giving affirmation after affirmation in regards to like situations and things happening. It's like, I'm going to continue to trust you, God, no matter what, whatever comes my way, I'm going to trust you. And I do think that in this situation, because I decided like, all right, I'm going to continue to trust God. God continue to show up for me. And I think even down the road, as things come about, as I continue on this journey of faith, that he's going to continue to say, I need you to trust me. And so I know that I have to get to a place where I'm continuing to trust him, despite my faith being under attack, despite, all of that. And it's not even, maybe it's not my faith being under attack. Maybe it's just a test, who the test come from. But it feels like, from the outside looking in, it feels like an attack. But again, God has a plan. And maybe it's just for me to continue to put my trust in him. And if it's more, I know he'll reveal it to me. And I thank him for that. But thank you so much for watching and for joining me for my Bible study. And I hope you'll join in next time, because I'm going to continue to do these. Anyway, share, like, subscribe. Until next time.